America's Voice Now. Bringing news and information to you that matters. That's the difference, folks. That's where we separate the wheat from the chaff, the men from the boys. We're not going to stand here and fill your ears with a lot of fluff and diatribe. When we're telling you what's going on, we're giving you the inside scoop. And you'll notice, if you listen to the media, that many of the issues that we talk about, especially those where we go into depth on them, those issues are oftentimes touched on by the media later, days later. So, part of what we're doing here is making sure that we're educating our listenership as rapidly as we can towards those things that are happening. But we don't just kind of give you the network feed that they give you, which is a 30-second soundbite. Our job and our goal is to make sure that we're giving you more than that we're giving you an opportunity to understand the implications of many of the things that are happening in our country. And, I get it. I'm a polarizing guy. People either love me or they hate me. But I'm only interested in making sure that we're dealing with those issues that are truly important to America. I don't care about any of the information that the media wants to dump on you. Our goal is to make sure that when you have information, it's relevant to what's happening in your life, and that it affects our republic in a general format. And I'm so grateful to those folks who have stepped up to the plate to help us with the development of this studio. I've talked to you before about this project that we're building called American Patriot TV. This project is large in scope and can be monumental in terms of its effectiveness. The goal is to have, the long-term goal of this is to have a 24/7 news channel that is really only related to those things that really matter. It's what I would envision that faux news should have been, could have been, and isn't. In other words, real hard news about real hard issues and a focus on that. No fluff, no talking about fashion, no talking about animals, no talking about anything that's not related to the decline of our republic and to what we need collectively to do about that to help restore it and preserve the nation that we have, that we've all benefited from. You're better educated than most folks in the world. Why? Because this phenomenal republic that we have has enabled you to get an education that is second to none. You have the ability to speak freely. You have the ability to defend yourself and your family. You have constitutionally, we have the right of privacy, the right against self-incrimination, the right to fair and true justice. Now, most of that has been squandered, stomped on, shredded, but we still have that foundational piece that we need to go back to. Obama's campaign slogan of forward tells you everything that you need to know. The direction he's taking us, we don't want to go forward. We want to go back. There's an old phrase out there, you can never go home again. I disagree with that in a political sense, because what makes this country great is the core foundational principles that we have adhered to as people for a long time. We the people. Now, politicians have been working, listen, they believe that their job is to pass legislation. I completely disagree with that. We already have plenty of laws. We don't need more. We need less. In fact, the Tea Party, the Constitution Party, the Libertarian Party, the defects, the folks who want to defect away from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party ought to form a party called the Repeal Party, where their function, their sole goal should be to repeal literally tens of thousands of unconstitutional or extra-constitutional laws. Government is meant and supposed to be microscopic in our lives, not all-encompassing, not omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. If you look at what our founders' intent was, if you read their writings, they said very clearly, government should not be or have an impact on your day in and day out affairs. And yet, you cannot do anything without fear of violating some law. And they're passing more day in and day out and day in and day out. I told you, and I gave you the statistics, the number of laws that Congress passes is microscopic in comparison to the number of laws that are passed by extra-constitutional agencies that exist without constitutional authority. We didn't delegate authority to Congress to subdelegate it to the EPA and the USDA and all of these literally thousands upon thousands of departments. The concept of an ATF, in light of the phrase from the Second Amendment that says shall not be infringed, is an open and blatant slap in the face. All laws regarding firearms by the federal government and even state governments are illegal on their face, null and void. How do we know that? Because the presence of firearms is what keeps tyrants in check. They're not for hunting. They're a perfect use for self-defense, but their primary function, their primary role, is as a deterrent. The founders understood the Second Amendment to be the equivalent of mutually assured destruction principle. Governments use that against each other, and the founders intended for the people to use that as a deterrent against overreach by government, tyranny in its worst form. Therefore, a Second Amendment and an ATF can no more exist in the same atmosphere or the same space and time as matter and antimatter. They're diametrically opposed, and they must conflict by the laws of nature. One is intended to infringe, and liberty and freedom and the constitutional rights that you have that have been outlined and delineated by the Constitution, not granted to you. Those come from nature, nature's God, and God himself. They're unalienable, or as many would say, unalienable, and therefore an ATF cannot lien those rights, limit, infringe. The same goes for the USDA, beating the heck out of farmers with a document that they force them to fill out, which has the most unreasonable, unconscionable information on there. That it's like a second tax form. I've read it. It's stunning. For those of you who aren't farmers, I mean, the amount of information that they're demanding out of these farmers is just unbelievable. If you actually see what and I'll pull it up, because if I read you the list of the questions that they're asking these people to provide information on a day in and day out basis, you'll be amazed at how much information they're demanding from them. Let me just read you this list of the questions they're asking. The number of acres of land you own, the physical location of the land, the number of acres of cropland that you harvest, number of acres of pasture land, number of acres leased for cash, number of acres irrigated, how much money you receive from state or federal agricultural programs, as if they don't know that. I mean, apparently they're the ones who are giving it out, but they ought to be able to tell you. The exact number of acres grown and harvested for each crop, corn, oats, peanuts, cotton, rice, wheat, soybean, wheat, whatever. Number of acres of hay or forage crops, number of acres used for Christmas trees or maple syrup. Detailed inventory of your greenhouses and your vegetable seeds, your mushrooms and propagative material. Detailed inventory of tobacco plants, berries, aquatic plants, sod, flowering plants, or other. Number of acres of beans, cantaloupes, potatoes, corns, and various melons. Number of acres grown of various fruit and nut crops, including apples, grapes, and pears. The total dollar value of all the crops you sold. That's already in your tax documentation. What do they need it for in this? Detailed inventory of berries, including blueberries, strawberries, blackberries. Details on the number of cattle and calves that you have. Value of all the cattle sold. That's in the tax return. They don't need to know that. Details on pigs, horses, sheep, goats, and other animals. Details of aquaculture operations, including the types of plants that are grown. Details on your poultry production, the number of the chickens that you have, what kind, how much money. All of the information on poultry. Details on bees, beekeeping, alpacas, bison, deer, elk, rabbits, and more. I mean, I broke that story about that guy, that magician in Missouri here who's got a rabbit, and the USDA sent him a form threatening him that he has to provide under penalty of fines and such and coercion, that he's got to produce an emergency escape plan in the event of a natural disaster for the rabbit. Are you flipping kidding me? I mean, don't these people have some real function to accomplish? Full details on production contracts, including chicken eggs, feed, seed, and more. Well, that's all in your tax forms. They don't need to know what kind of contracts you have. Your write-offs and your profits will explain all of that in your tax report. Full reporting of all income from farm-related sources. Again, an IRS function. Full details of all farm labor, how many people you hired, what you paid them, etc. Again, an IRS function. Grain storage capacity on your farm. All production expenses, including a full accounting of all money spent. That's a tax function. Why is the USDA duplicating the IRS? Detail on all fertilizers and chemicals that you applied on your farm. Details on all organic food production. Tell me, by the way, none of this is going back to Monsanto and the agri-tyrants that are running the food supply system. The market value of all your land, machinery, buildings, and equipment. Hey, listen, that's on every IRS form. Details on all your tractors, what kind they are, how many horsepower, and all the attachments that you own for them. Details on all sources of energy, including solar, wind, geoexchange, biodiesel, and other. Details on land use practices, on erosion and conservation, cover crops, crop rotation, reclamation projects, biomass harvesting. Details on the dollar value of direct sales of human consumption goods. The names and descriptions of all the farm operators, including the name, sex, age, race, hours of work, household income details, and what kind of internet access you have. How invasive can the USDA be? The next thing you want to know, they're going to want to know whether you wear boxers or briefs and what color stripes you have on your socks. And if you don't know about it, under executive order, let's see, I don't have the exact number directly in front of me here, 35301, the executive order is published, by the way, on the whitehouse.gov. It was signed 3/16 of 2012 under the National Defense Resource Preparedness. The executive order states that the president alone has the authority to take over all the resources in the nation, including labor, food, and industry, to promote national defense. Hey, folks, you can't get any more vague than national defense. The power is there for the Secretary of Agriculture to seize and take control over all resources, food resource facilities, livestock resources, veterinary resources, plant health resources, and domestic distribution of farm equipment and commercial fertilization by the Secretary of Agriculture. That is the USDA. The Secretary of Health and Human Services with respect to health resources. Secretary of Transportation with respect to all forms of civil transportation. Secretary of Defense with respect to water resources. Really? Secretary of Defense on water? Is that the new oil, perhaps? Secretary of Commerce with respect to all other materials, services, and facilities, including construction materials. And then he gave DHS authority over all communication systems, public and private. They have the authority to seize your farm. All they're trying to do is get an inventory of what they already own and haven't taken away from you yet. That's what's wrong with America, folks. Frankly, Congress ought to be spending their time dealing with that. Why are they sitting there discussing all of these other ancillary things that really have no, honestly, the total number of laws passed, I think it was in 2011, which is the last count that they had for this study. The total laws passed by Congress was like 300, and the total laws passed by or administrative agencies, extra constitutional, I might add, was 3,000. That means unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats are passing laws, which they call rules and regulations, but they're law. People go to jail for them. You're fined on them. They can take your farm with them. So therefore, it's a law. And they're passing them by the tens of thousands. They're not accountable. They're not elected. We have no idea who they are. Their ideology is almost always aligned with whatever administration is in power. And they are used as a weapon by that administration. And neither the Republicans nor the Democrats are freed from this. The Republicans did it when they were in power. The Democrats did it when they were in power. And it's always the same. All right, I want to spend the last couple of minutes talking about a couple things. One, I want you to be aware that on the 7th of August, we have a fundraiser that's going to be held at Pizza Hut on Porter Wagoner in West Plains. That is on the 7th of August between 5 and 7 p.m., and these folks over at Pizza Hut have been gracious enough to provide so that a fundraiser platform so that the receipts for that night between the hours of 5 and 7 o'clock, they will share a percentage of that with America's Voice Now for our projects that we're working on, the radio projects. Wow, that is an impressive thing. I mean, here's a corporation that has a restaurant in our area, and they have agreed to step up to the plate and throw a fundraiser for America's Voice Now. I am impressed, and I am touched, and I am humbled. To me, that is the epitome of dedication and commitment to our cause and our community, because America's Voice Now does serve this community. Not everybody would agree with that, by the way. There's plenty of people out there that would be, in fact, are happy that 107.1 is going to drop America's Voice Now and all their other programming as well. There's lots of folks out there that don't like this program, folks. Lots of them. But there's many, many, many other folks that rely on this program to provide them with the daily information and the strength and the courage to continue their fight in our fight for restoring a constitutional government and liberty and freedom in America. That's why I get out of bed in the morning, and that's why I come in here and do this purely as a voluntary effort. It costs me money to put this show on every day. There's no fundage, there's no payment, there's no, stations don't pay you to do a show like this. It's funded entirely by you, by donations and fundraisers like this. So mark it on your calendar, because I'm going to be there on the 7th of August at Pizza Hut on Porter Wagoner Boulevard in West Plains. Please make sure that you set it up so that you can come in groups, bring your families. I'm going to be there. We'll spend the evening together, and we'll have a heck of a good time. I think that's a great opportunity for me to meet with you folks, too, who I haven't had a chance to meet one-on-one or face-to-face. And you can go in there. They're going to have a special buffet out there where they'll have, pizza, but they'll also have that salad bar and things like that. So it's going to be a buffet night, which is normally not done, but because of the event here, they're going to do it that night. Make sure that you're participating in that. I want to remind you to get a hold of Greg McLaughlin over at blackopsschoolofcombat.com for your concealed carry needs. Make sure that you call Greg. He'll be there that night, too. It's 417-255-1612 if you want to call him. He does a concealed carry program, but he also does many, many other training programs. And Greg has been a supporter and a friend to this program, and I want you to make sure that you work with him. Kevin over at the battery station has been a longtime supporter of America's Voice Now. He has he's got those 50 caliber ammo cans in stock, by the way, and Magpul AR mags. He's still got a few of those left. If you have not had an opportunity to get down there, you cannot beat the price he's got on those Magpul AR-15 mags, and the 50 cal cans are like $10 a piece, so you can't beat that. He is also committed to making a donation to America's Voice Now in our continued efforts. So I want to thank him, and you should too. When you go in there and you see any of the sponsors who sponsor this program and this show, make sure you say to them, listen, I want to thank you for sponsoring and supporting America's Voice Now, and I'm here because I heard your ad on that show. That lets them know where their advertising dollar is going, in full disclosure, and it also enables them to know that they're doing the right thing and that their advertising dollar is not only working to support and benefit the community, but also it's bringing them business. That's true capitalism, folks. I spend money, I get something back out of it, and I help my neighbors and my friends. We can't ask for more than that. If you're interested in the co-op program, make sure that you ask him when you get there for the co-op catalog, and he'll be more than happy to provide that for you. America's Voice Now has a co-op program that is open only to our listeners, and so you have to state that you are a listener to America's Voice Now to participate in that. Please do that. Make sure that you see, by the way, you can get to the battery station on the web by going to batterystation.com. You can call them at 417-257-7799, or you can find them at 303 Washington Avenue. That's that main drag right off the square in West Plains. So it's, again, 417-257-7799 and the battery, or batterystation.com. Chantilly's Artisan Bakery. If you get a chance, go over there and get yourself a cup of coffee in the morning, or get yourself she makes awesome bread. In fact, I got a loaf on Saturday, and it was delicious. You can reach her at 255-2253, or find her at number 2 Evans Arcade, right off the square in West Plains. Our friends at SpringCreekBeef.com, who provide 100% natural, all grass, no grain, no hormones, no antibiotics, no anything beef. And they ship nationwide, by the way. You got to visit their website and order something from them. They also have a couple of spots locally in West Plains and the surrounding areas where you can actually go there. She keeps a freezer at Battery Station. She keeps a freezer there, so you don't even have to go out to Pottersville to pick it up. You can actually go right to the Battery Station and buy what you want. There's a freezer right on site. She's got a couple of other locations like that as well. So make sure that you visit SpringCreekBeef.com. Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. They have a brand new website at Ozark Survival Gear. We just built that website. By the way, if you're interested in any web work, please visit our site, which I just turned on last night. There's a lot of work to be done on it yet, but I'm like the cobbler whose son has no shoes, right? I'm so busy building websites for other people, I don't get a chance to finish my own. But you can go to airbridgeweb.com. That's air, like you breathe, bridge, like you drive over with a car, web, like internet. airbridgeweb.com. Please feel free to visit that website, and you can contact us and communicate with us there. You can see some examples of some of the websites that we've built. If you're a business in need of a site, please give me a call. I'd be more than happy to work with you on that. There's contact information there. You can send us email, and there's a phone number there for you to call for web work. Please, let's keep radio and web work stuff separate, because my phones are jammed all the time anyway. Pizza Hut. Hey, listen, these guys have sponsored us, and they're doing this fundraiser for us on the 7th. And on August 7th, please make sure that you put that on your calendar. It'll be held, again, between 5 and 7 p.m. I'll make sure I'm there for the night, and we'll have a chance to get together and talk about some things and share some experiences that we've had and so forth and so on. Stone Construction. Bill Stone's a buddy of mine and a real American patriot. If you're doing any kind of work, whether it's residential, commercial, reconstruction, renovation, restoration, farm work, industrial, commercial, doesn't make any difference. Get a hold of Bill over at Stone Construction at 2930116, and Bill can give you a bid on a project that you're working with. And also, my friend Jason over at Wits End Classic Barbershop, who sponsors our phone lines, he's opening a brand new place called the Patriot Lounge right in the back of his barbershop. And it's going to be a place where you can keep, you can go in and have a cigar, or if you're a pipe smoker, they've got, it's basically a smoke shop for adults. And they've got lockers in there with humidors and all kinds of things. Make sure that you go over and visit them, because that's going to be a very, very awesome advantage and benefit to our community, for a place where, guys can go in there and girls can go in there and just share information and have an old-time place where we can hang out and discuss ideas and great concepts. Jason Elkins Plumbing, 293-7640. John Hatley Construction at 293-8229. Make sure you give those folks a call and support them. Thank you for listening to America's Voice Now. You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. You can find us at Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And you can capture this and every other show that we do at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. You can also stream this program live at americasvoicenow.org, 8 to 9 a.m. every day, even after Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow.
The best shows in Branson are now playing at the Americana Theater. Don't miss Three Redneck Tenors, Branson